Hey guys, Thunder E here, and we are doing the video you've been waiting for. Yes, we're testing out the iPhone XS Max from the perspective of a professional photographer.
Hello.
Yes, this is my buddy Marian Sell, who has helped me do some awesome videos on devices like the Huawei P20 Pro, the Galaxy S9 Plus, and the OnePlus 6 from the perspective of somebody who knows how to use a camera. This guy. Yeah. So, how long have you had the iPhone XS Max with you?
So I had it for about a week, and I was testing a few different settings like night mode, daytime, telelens, portrait mode, animated photos. Actually, maybe not so interesting, but HDR photos. Yeah, this phone has a lot to play with.
What about the feel of the phone? What do you think about it?
The phone itself is actually a really nice design. I think the quality of it, I prefer the quality to the Huawei and the OnePlus and the Samsung. It is actually very robust and it feels good in my hand. For me, it's a little bit too tall. I think you preferred the
right
bigger
size.
one. Yeah,
right size.
Actually, with my left hand, I have trouble opening the camera app, but that's maybe just me or the way I hold the phone. I want to say one thing, that is when we tested the other phones, or the other cameras, I almost want to say, the other cameras had pro modes, and I went into that test much more feeling like I'm going to test a camera. Whilst here there's no pro mode, unfortunately, so I feel a little bit like I'm testing a telephone with a camera app.
Well, that being said though, he did take a lot of pictures, so let's jump in and check out what he has to say. All right, Marian, what are we looking at?
All right, I'm going to show you 5 photos just to compare a few images in backlit scenarios. The first one here is actually a comparison between the telephoto lens and the regular lens. I did this on the beach. I found this pretty car standing around. I just wanted to get an idea of the quality of the different lenses. So both of them are, for me, satisfyingly sharp, and the colors look great. It seems to be a little bit like the telelens has a little more texture, a little more grain, if you want to call it like that, than the regular lens. I think that in this particular case, the smart HDR was enabled. I mean, I know that. And I think that Apple is doing a pretty fantastic job when it comes to cloudscapes behind the objects. So it does look natural, it stays natural, but you get a lot of details in the clouds, and I think it's very well achieved. If you wanted to, you could now go ahead and increase the contrast in the sky and do all your work, things you want to do, to make it even more dramatic, but I think it's a pretty well balanced photo that you get.
Nice.
Maybe you recognize that this here is Photoshop, whilst on the other telephones that we've tested together, we were actually working with the professional image capture program Capture One. So the iPhone does not give you RAW files, it only gives you JPEGs. So that's why I went straight ahead and I just opened them in Photoshop. So next shot, same parking lot basically on the beach. This is my friend Johan. In a dramatic backlit environment once again. I did not really color correct this image or anything. I wanted to show you something. Like, one of the big differences now that we only have a JPEG instead of a RAW file. If I wanted to go ahead and I push the shadows of the shot, then you will see that I get confronted to a lot of texture, which is basically, well, the texture of the compression, the texture of the grain, the sharpness of the grain, like basically the artificial sharpness. I think we're confronted to a lot of artificial image defaults that we wouldn't have had if we were working with a RAW file instead of a JPEG. And I think it's a little unfortunate that Apple does not offer you to play with RAW files. But besides that, once again, cool shot. It looks good, and I did not do any complicated exposure settings or anything.
Okay.
You can go ahead and make it a little brighter or darker. It works well. Next one, Williamsburg Bridge, shot right into the sun. I think it's quite cool how Apple manages the shadows and how you have details both in shadows, both in background. And you almost have, the sun is completely white, but it does not burn out like a big halo. So pretty well done on this one as well, Apple. Congratulations. Another backlit shot with a lot of details. Once again, JPEG compression comes in this one here because there's so much detail going on in the background. The JPEG has, like, this image in its size compared to the other images. It's actually bigger because there's so much detail that the JPEG has to handle. And you will be confronted with the same problem if you wanted to get more details out of the surfer who is standing there in the shadow, basically. You will be confronted to the same issue that actually the details are already, it's all in a JPEG, so you'll basically go ahead and push the grain
as much as possible.
Yes. All right, so we're looking at 2 photos of my friend Andy that I went surfing with the other day. And I took these photos in portrait mode. And the portrait mode is trying to isolate your object from the background by making the background more blurry, which is, if you were shooting with a 35mm or bigger camera, for example, with a portrait lens, you would naturally and organically get this feeling of a blurred out background. So because the sensor of the iPhone is so small, you don't get that much fall off of sharpness from your object to the background, so it's being done artificially. We are looking at, this one here is f-stop 16, so the background is as sharp as it can be in the portrait mode compared to f-stop 1.4. So by the way, this is done in the phone. Once you shot the photo, you go into the app and you can increase or decrease the sharpness of the background. And I'm not the biggest fan of the mode, to be honest. I have I have a little bit of cringy feeling with a very blurred out version of this. I think that let's say the f-stop 9 or 16 has like a natural feel to it. Everything that's wider open than that, like let's say 2.5 or 1.4, it does not really work for me because it looks for me like an image that has been artificially blurred out.
How so?
Because, well, basically the only thing that is now in focus is the face. And if you were to shoot this with a bigger camera and you get this feeling organically, then you would have basically the face in focus, but you would also have the same layer that is at the same distance of the face, basically also in focus. So basically the chest, the logo that's on the chest would be in focus, probably this arm, whilst the nose of the surfboard, because it's closer to the camera, would be more out of focus again. Well, it works in that sense that it isolates the main subject from the background, and basically it can help you to take a photo of somebody with a very distracting background, and you can blur the background out a little bit and therefore get the attention to what's more important inside the shot. But I just didn't get used to this artificial focus, like blur feeling just yet.
There was something you said earlier. You said it does a good job in blurring out the background but not the foreground.
Yes, basically, well, there's something to it, and I tested it in this image. I wanted to see where the focus is basically, and I over sharpened the photo to find out where the focus or where the sharpness is. And basically what the phone does, it finds the face and then leaves the face in focus and blurs everything out. It also blurs out the texture of everything. That's why you get so much texture that's now here over sharpened in the face, whilst you see how from there everything gets out of focus, and even the texture of the file gets out of focus to the point that it's just become complete blurriness.
Okay.
Well, there's one more thing in this particular shot that we're looking at. It looks like Andy has 6 fingers, and it is probably because the phone has been trying to do some HDR recovery. So whenever you have moving objects in your shot and you're doing a smart HDR photo, then there's a chance that you get like some sort of ghost image, because the phone does actually do several photos to get you one single shot that has more high dynamic range, basically.
Yeah.
So this is basically the first time I did a selfie, and I promised Inobong to do it, so here you go. What I want to say is that the camera once again does a brilliant job at backlit environments. Actually, an interesting thing to observe is when you look at the advertising videos of the iPhone XS, you will realize that most of the shots have been taken in backlit environments, and that there's something to it. There's actually, I recommend to you to try it out. Instead of having the sun facing your person, turn it around and shoot against the sun. The iPhone in particular does something really well. Like it keeps a nice balance between the sky behind the people and the shadow light that is now the main light. I'm really happy to see how how the contrast is being handled. I'm looking like a kook on my selfie, but well. There's something to the selfie, I think. It looks a little bit washed out to me, which means like there's less contrast in the front-facing camera, I believe, than there is in the back-facing camera. So I didn't turn the camera around and made it more awkward for myself and took like another photo of myself. But but it looks like it's trying to help maybe with the skin or so. It's trying to be nice with you. It's trying to be gentle with you and make you look nice and pretty and beautiful, I believe.
Yeah, we call that beauty mode.
All right, I just want to mention this quickly. I did a quick sequence of a surfer going for a little wave with a telephoto lens. Those were initially 70-something photos, and each one of the photos is at the highest quality that the phone can deliver, basically. So that's a pretty good thing. Like you just leave the finger on the button, and the phone is going to take those photos for you. Afterwards, you can select which ones you want to keep, or if you want to keep all of them. That's pretty brilliant. But once again, I'm sorry to tell you, Apple, the quality of the telephoto lens for some reason in this particular case throws me off a little bit. It seems there's a lot of texture in the file that shouldn't be there. Once again, maybe it would have been nicer to being able to access the raw file instead of getting a finished JPEG. Alright, so I did this photo because we are confronted to a lot of contrast. There's a lot of shadow and there's a lot of light just right behind the shadow. I wanted to see what the Smart HDR does, how it helps us basically to keep our details. So this here is the first shot is without HDR support basically. And you can see how we actually lose the sky and details in this roof here get lost. Compared that to the HDR version or the Smart HDR version, we actually we have a lot of room. Like there's a lot of recovered details in these areas. For example, you see how the color is much punchier in the HDR version. How all of the areas that are in the regular shot white have a little more texture to them. So what that means is basically that we could, if we wanted to, go ahead and take the HDR shot and push the contrast on this one more, which it can be very appealing and it can be very crunchy and kind of punchy look if you like that kind of thing. So I think the Smart HDR is actually seems to be doing a very good job for me as of right now. I don't think it looks unnatural. Alright, so I did this quick shot with a telephoto lens. The reason why I did it was because the night before I took it at night as well. So, and I want to compare the quality of the night mode in the telephoto lens. And to be quite honest, I think it's actually really bad. There's a lot of grain. I don't even know what to say. I have a feeling that I know that the normal lens is doing a better job for some reason. The grain is just too much. Look at the details here and on this board compared to the daytime shot. It's obvious that the camera has to go for a very high ISO for the nighttime shot compared to the daytime shot, but I am a little bit underwhelmed by the quality and the amount of grain that you get when you attempt to do a night shot with the telelens.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, here's a quick night shot for you guys. With the shot with the regular lens, I think it's pretty good. The iPhone does not try to scream that much in its colors as the Huawei P20 tries to do in the night shot mode. It gives you a pretty calm version of a night shot, so you can go ahead, increase the contrast or increase the saturation if you want to. I think the quality is pretty good. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to choose my exposure time manually, so I would have done, let's say, for example, a 1 second exposure on this one to being able to avoid much grain that came through the higher ISO that the phone chose for me. But there is something cool going on that Apple offers you to do, which is like when you're shooting live photos, then you can actually go ahead and use a long time exposure, which is an artificial long time exposure. Because maybe, as you know, the live photo does something. It takes about 1.5 seconds of photos. I think it takes one key photo, which is a high quality photo, and then it takes another 37 lower quality photos. And if you tell the phone that you want it to be a long time exposure, then you can go ahead and get this kind of effect out of it, which means you see how the smoke came out of this. What's it called? Chimney?
Chimney, yeah.
And yes, so those 1.5 seconds of smoke have been combined into a long time exposure here. It's a great effect. There's really a lot of room to play with. It does decrease the image quality though compared to the original shot. If you maybe look at the details that we have here on the back of this van, comparing now the long time exposure version to the original version, you see that we lose some quality. Like everything becomes a little more soft. It is not that bad. I think it's acceptable, but well, you lose some quality. Just keep it in mind. There's also one more thing that you can get out of it. So when you're sending animations like the live photos, you can also have them bounce, or you can have them what's it called, loop. Yes. It makes some sort of movie file out of your photos, and you can share those with your iPhone friends via iMessage, or you can put them on social media as a boomerang or so. It becomes a little more complicated when you try to send those photos by email to your friends, or if you send them to Android phones, then they are going to be confronted to some sort of movie files. It becomes a little more complicated. Also, one thing to keep in mind when you do loop or you do bounce, the file size is becoming drastically decreased. So you get something that is only about 1/10 in size to the original shot, the original photo. So keep that in mind for quality purposes. Alright, and for those of you who have seen the video of the Huawei P20, I was testing the Huawei P20 at night, and I was very amazed of what it can do at night, because it really created photos at what seemed to be pitch black night to me, and they look pretty punchy and kind of happy. So the iPhone XS Max, it gives us a much more calm and much more neutral version of a night shot compared to the P20, the Huawei P20. So if you look at these two in comparison, you see how the iPhone XS Max is much more subdued in its color tone compared to this one, which is a little more yelling and screaming. Also, the Huawei P20 has a lot of artificial sharpening going on compared to the iPhone XS, which is, I think, pretty good. You see how the water tower does not really have around the little black lines, does not have too much sharpening. But interestingly, I did the same photo with my iPhone 8, and wait a second, I have them overlaid again one more time here. So this is basically the new iPhone compared to the iPhone 8, which is like 2 generations before. And I am a little bit underwhelmed of the amelioration that the new camera does. I want to say that the new camera is not that much better. At least it does not justify to me the $1,000 more you would have to spend in order to hold it in your hand. If it was about night shots, I almost think that the iPhone 8 does a comparable job. It has a little bit more grain, yeah, but it has the identical file size, and it has a very high quality. So yeah, Apple, I think you could have stepped up the game on this one a little bit more on the nighttime shots compared to your old devices.
So you guys have seen the photos, you've heard Marian's explanation. So what are your final thoughts on the camera of the iPhone XS Max?
So I think that, I don't know, like I'm using the iPhone 8 for myself, and I sometimes take photos with it. I'm not really taking professional photos with it. I almost feel like that Apple could have done more upgrade to the camera. Actually, it felt like it's the same. I'm playing with the same camera. It has the exact same feel. The image quality is not that much better, I think, than the iPhone 8.
Even with the Smart HDR?
I think the Smart HDR is a change, yes. There's something to the backlit environments where you have lots of nice textures in the sky. I think Apple did an outstanding job there, actually. But that wouldn't be enough reason for me to buy a new, actually very expensive phone. Also, I'm missing the professional modes, because the other, like Huawei and Samsung and OnePlus for now, the professional modes made it actually really fun to play with. I felt much more like I'm holding a camera in my hands than a phone, and I approached my subjects differently. I think with the iPhone I got a little bit more into like a mode where I took like bursts and I take a lot of photos compared to when I'm actually deciding my ISO, my time, my f-stop, then I'm actually much more working, much more precise. So I think that there's something to that, which I really enjoyed.
Well, that's interesting to hear. So at least Marian has stated his thoughts. He feels that maybe not necessarily worth the upgrade in terms of
not for me,
the camera.
From the iPhone 8, no, for me it's not worth the upgrade. No.
Okay. Well, there you have it, guys. So hopefully this helps you sort out any issues or comments you want. If you have any comments about this video, leave them down in the comment section. This is Alaska. If you want to actually go ahead and check out Marian's stuff, we have a link to his Instagram. You can follow him there, and also check him out on his website where he has some really cool, awesome photos. Yeah. This guy is fantastic with a camera. Trust me, all the photos he's taking, I could never take them well, even on the iPhone with that no pro mode. So thank you very much. Don't forget to like, share this video, favorite this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you like Alaska, definitely subscribe to the channel as well. And always enjoy your entertainment.
Bye bye.